Welcome, champions! My name is Margaret, and I'm coming to you live from the safe, isolated confines of Codename Entertainment streaming studio in Victoria, British Columbia, Canada. Before we begin, I'd also like to thank D&D for hosting us on the official D&D Twitch channel. It is and always will be an honor to be here. Shout out as well to Erica, helping to co-produce and moderate the stream with us. To kick things off today, we have a pre-recorded interview with Gary Gygax discussing his character Melf, so I'll get that started.
And we're good. So I just want to, first things first, thank you for taking time out of your very busy schedule to join us. I know GaryCon just wrapped up, and you've got a lot of other things on the go. So thank you for taking some time today to join me.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. I mean, I'm been looking forward to this for months, and it's something that's very exciting to me. Melf was my favorite character, and from a favorite time in my life when I got to play Dungeons and Dragons with my dad a whole lot, and we bonded over that quite a bit. So this is a wonderful, very happy thing for me to be here and talk about. And it's especially great to do it now when, gosh, there's so much bad news out there. This is just one of those things that I hope will put puts a smile on my face, and I hope it lightens people's day and they get to enjoy playing Melf as much as I have throughout the years.
I know there are quite a few spells named after Melf in the player's handbook. Even still, yeah. I mean, how long ago did you create Melf at this point?
Oh, geez, so that's I can't remember an exact date, but my first character that I played was Otis, and he was a ranger. I started Otis, probably 1975, so it would have still been original D&D, probably with variants and house rules and things of that nature. But I was pretending to be a man-at-arms in the village of Hamlet as a group of adventurers went to explore the Moat House, which is the beginning of your T1 through 4 adventure. And so Otis worked for the Druid in the Woods and was keeping an eye on the party to see if they were actually what they said, or if they were evildoers looking to reinvigorate the Moat House that was near the village of Hamlet, and once again evil will rise up to attack. Of course, the party turned out to be goodly sorts, and I played Otis for a number of years, probably all the way till 79 or 80, 1980 or so. And when Otis met an ignoble end in after clearing the G series, which was the Against the Giants, and the D series, the Drow, and all of those great things, and the Kuatoa, etc. One time I went on an adventure, like a one-shot with my dad when I was saying, "Oh, come on, I want to play some D&D," and I went in the Tomb of Horrors. Maybe he was in a bad mood that day, I don't know. But poor Otis didn't make it out of the Tomb of Horrors, which is a very tough adventure. If you haven't had a chance to look at that, it's worth taking a look at. You can Google it. It's also in Ready Player One, which was a great book. Obviously not the movie, but a very challenging adventure meant to really test players' skills, not the toughness of their character, but the player's ability to navigate through puzzles and difficult situations. Anyway, so Otis met an ignoble end, and so I rolled up a new character and whimsically just kind of named him Melf. Just sounded funny as an elf, so I named him Melf. It rhymed. And I was a kid, and that was cool. And I was a fighter magic user simply because, as a kid, and as a solo adventure, which I was going to be doing a lot of, what do you need? Well, you got to have the ability to fight, and it's nice to have some artillery, right? Some of the magic. So Melf was, used a lot of evocation spells as well as the support spells for a fighter. But I began adventuring in Castle Greyhawk and explored underneath there and met, the various factions on the first level of Castle Greyhawk, and delved down into the deeper levels and advanced in level. And of course, when I hit 5th level, as every magic user gets very excited when they hit 5th level, and what spell do they most want? Fireball, of course, right? That's the big spell that everybody wants at 5th level. So back in 1st edition, the old ways where you had to find someone to train you, whether it was fighter or magic user, wizard. And so I did, and I had to roll. You had to roll percentile dice to see, based on your intelligence, if you could learn the spell. So I talked to I got the training, and he indeed had Fireball ready, and I rolled the dice, and I was able to learn it. So I purchased a spell, copied it into my spell book. Now I was all set, and I went down in the dungeon with my 1 3rd level spell, Fireball. So exploring through the dungeon, I kick open a door, and what do I see but 2 or 3 ogres, if I remember right. We're in this room, and I asked, what are the dimensions of the room? It looked like approximately a 30 by 30 room. Read my spell, I know it, 30 by 30 fireball, right? So I toss the fireball into the room, it explodes, and I'm very excited. I roll my dice, and he's like, okay, make a saving throw. I'm like, what? It's a 30 by 30 room. He said, yes, that's true, but the ceiling is only 15 feet high. I learned about volume. I was like, oh no. So the backwash came out the doorway, and of course I failed my saving throw, and once you fail your saving throw, you have to save for all your items on your character sheet back using that rule set. And of course I lost, my backpack probably got, broken, and I lost some various items. I did defeat the ogres. I still managed to beat them up and victorious. However, I was quite irked that this spell had went this way. So I was like, that's bogus, Dad. I should be able to break my fireball down and make it smaller so that I can use it more versatily. And he's like, well, that's not the way the spell is built. I said, yeah, but it should be. He's like, well, if you want to make the spell that way, then let's talk about it. And so I had to take some time out of game, set it aside. You take some of your money, your resources, and you apply them to spell research, and you describe the effects that you want to get and kind of work it. And so essentially he's writing up the spell as you're role-playing through the spell design. And then he kind of looks at it, takes some time, weighs it, and we came up with Melf's Minute Meteors as a way to break that fireball spell down into smaller fireballs so that they could be more usable and better for, especially someone who has fighter magic user in this case, or a fighter wizard, or depending on the system you're using, because you have those with you and you can rain them down as you're attacking. So that's a nice benefit, and I used it often. So that's how Melf's Minute Meteors came about. It's really about kind of a level of play or a style of play that may not be as popular today, where you're worried about all the dimensions of the spells and these sorts of things. It's a little bit different style of play many times. Another one that probably people know still today is Melf's Acid Arrow. So I was an elf, so I had a longbow. I used to utilize that a bit. I would shoot. I'd use standoff, even when I was solo adventuring with others, shoot a couple shots while the enemy closed to fight. Now, I think this is still a classic scenario, one that works very well and it's worked for a long time. Typically, you'll have the main bad guy, if they're a spellcaster, whether it's priest or clerical type magic or arcane magic, in the back, casting spells, and they'll have the meat shields in front. Orcs or goblins or bandits or whatever the case may be. So if you're playing with just a small group or even solo play, that can be bad news because you're stuck fighting those guys while the spells get rained down on you. So I came up with Melf's Acid Arrow because in first edition, if you were a spellcaster and you took damage, it interrupted your spell and you would automatically lose your spell. You couldn't cast. So this was specifically designed for those situations where I would see, hey, there's a guy in robes in the back. Aha, right? So I would use Melf's Acid Arrow and hit the, usually less armored, so it's a little bit easier to hit, and hit him with the Acid Arrow, and it would do a small amount of damage for several melee rounds, so I could fight my way through the meat shields in front, and by the time I was closed up, I'd close the distance, and I'd be able to engage them in hand-to-hand and usually defeat them that way. So again, it was just tactically, I saw something that I wanted my character to be able to do, and again, we used that same process, even though I think I was a little lower level when I did that one, or 4th level, but it's like, well, I'd like to put something on my arrows that would, like a flaming arrow. Well, that's not really very feasible, be carrying a flaming arrow around or something like that. That wouldn't really have the effect I wanted. So I said, well, maybe it could be magical and have, acid that would persist and do some damage. And so, once again, you had to do your research, role play through it, and then he kind of wrote up the spell, and it worked. And that happened a lot in my dad's campaign, and the spells made it through to gameplay, the good ones, and a lot of them have persisted. The Big B spells. Big B was one of my dad's characters. Mordenkainen was one of my father's characters. Tensor's floating disc. That was my brother Ernie played the character Tensor, and again, a style of play that this harkens back to the old days. A lot of times you'd find treasure. When you find treasure in a room, it might be a lot of copper pieces or silver pieces or things like that. And as I've alluded to, you needed the resources in order to train to go up a level, no matter what your class was, or if you wanted to research spells or, heaven forbid, magic items. That was pretty much, you had to find those. But if you wanted to write a spell book, or engrave things in your spell book, that cost money. And so you didn't want to leave even 5,000 silver pieces behind. You wouldn't want to leave that, but 5,000 silver pieces is 500 pounds of silver in first edition. I believe it's 10 coins to a pound, if I remember correctly. So you can only carry about 250 in a backpack in ADD. Wow. I don't know why I know these stats still, because it's not like I play regularly first edition anymore, but I believe it's 250 gold pieces or pieces of coins that will fit into a backpack. So you have your large sacks and backpacks and all that stuff, but you're going to be encumbered. You're dragging along. Well, Tensor was just created Tensor's floating disc. He wasn't that strong. He couldn't carry that much stuff. But with Tensor's floating disc, it was just basically a hovercraft, little disc that would float along, and you could
load it up with treasure.
Load up with treasure and tote it out. So that's it. It had like a wagon, a magical wagon that you could haul out. So these were the fun things that people thought of to overcome obstacles or challenges that were put in front of them by the GM. So it's just that's just how those things developed. And I'm sure other folks did the same things in their games, and maybe they just didn't make it into publication, or if you submitted them, maybe you made it a Dragon magazine back in the day or something like that.
Yeah. Do you have any really memorable ones that didn't survive past like a few play sessions?
I can't. Nothing that comes to mind at the moment. I wish I did. That'd be a good story. I'll have to dig in the memory banks and see if I can think of something. I'll bring it up later. But I think the ones that my father invested a lot of time in were the ones that he thought had maybe some legs underneath them and would be good additions to his game. Because remember, this was fun for me, but this was also his work. So when we were hanging out doing this sort of stuff, he was working to a certain extent, because the adventures that Melf went on were typically, other than Castle Greyhawk, which I would do in between playtests for modules, whether it was, I think it's S4, that's the Lost Caverns of Sajkanth. I played that whole thing. I think I hit every single cave, and WG4, which would be the Lost Temple of Tharizdun. I played that in there, and probably about 50% of that was solo play, going through there many nights, after school. Yeah, I'd love it. I mean, are you kidding? Yeah. I'd come home and, hey, are we going to play D&D tonight? And you'd be like, okay, yeah, sure. Let's do a couple hours. And I would help, I'd go through it and you'd say, okay, is that balanced? Is that not balanced? Does this make sense? And, of course, I knew his style of play. So whenever I'd go into a place and, you see a, wondrously decorated thing and they're welcoming you in, I disbelieve. He's like, no, you can't disbelieve. I mean, no, I'm still a young kid. I know you're going to try to, I know it's a trap. Gosh darn it. Yeah. But that was, so I would get to play test, Sajkanth, Dungeonland, to the Magic Mirror, lots of fun adventures, as well as, I guess something that not that many people have gotten to experience, sadly, was my dad's Castle Greyhawk, which was, really the first mega dungeon that he created, along with his co-DM, Rob Kuntz, so that he would get to, Rob was like 14, but that was the co-DM so that my dad would get to play, because just like any of us, he didn't always want to run the game. Sometimes he wanted to shake the dice as a player and try to, get some fun on that side of the screen as well.
Yeah, it's funny because I remember I have a friend who's been my DM for 15 years, 20 years, and when I told him I was going to DM for somebody, he's like, make sure that they don't only let you DM. It's the first thing. He's like, don't only be a DM. I was like, whoa. That was his piece of advice. He's like, don't forget to play. Because
I've heard that from a lot of people, and I thought it was what I thought was surprising, or it surprised me, and that's just goes to show you that sometimes you don't realize how your life may be different than others. For me, I never had a problem growing up finding gamers. I mean, that was what we did. So I generally played. I was surrounded by all sorts of great DMs and GMs. But many folks I've talked to, they relate how they were very interested in Dungeons and Dragons. The artwork really drew them to a piece, and they bought a book or a rule book or whatever it is, and they ended up reading through it many times because they couldn't find, or they didn't know people who played.
Mm-hmm.
Us before the internet, and you could easily get out there and find folks. You had to look for the geek flag that someone was flying, and tune in. Was that? Oh, hey, and then you have to talk to them about it, and then hope that you struck a chord and you get into a game. But even guys like, I think Joe Manganiello was telling me, you read through in his room this solo adventure that was in a particular rule book that just escapes my mind. But he would read that through several times, and it took him a couple of years to find people to play with. And that just surprised me. I always had somebody to play with, and it was very easy. And it's something I've done. My earliest memories are sitting around the table rolling dice. I couldn't read yet, I couldn't do anything, but I would still be there at the table rolling dice, asking questions, and doing stuff since before.
I can't wait to do that to my daughter.
It's pretty cool. I have 3 young daughters at home, and Miriam is 12. She'll be 13 pretty soon. But I also could not wait, and so I did stuff like just got out teddy bears and this sort of thing, and put couch pillows down and threw a cover over them, or action figures or whatever we had, and I'd take it down. Okay, what kind of powers does this guy have, and just get the imagination going. When she was pretty young, and played Awful Green Things from Outer Space, a great Tom Wong game from probably 1979. Would play that with her. I play Stone Age. Sometimes I'd have to read the cards to her because I was just trying to, okay, come on, we can do it. But those are games for like 8-year-olds or something, and she was 5. So I was trying to push it. Let's go. And of course, role playing. She loved playing D&D. Particularly, Stefan Corney from Dwarven Forge is a friend, and really, really nice man. And so he sent me several sets of his Dwarven Forge tiles. And so I set them up in the garage, and I had bought into, I think it was one of the Reaper miniature Kickstarter. So I had tons of plastic minis, and so she would play with those for hours. But the first role playing for her was really, I think, what many of us when we're younger players enjoyed. She was a ranger named Brendak, and a dual wield. And really, she just kind of wanted to get to the part where she got to kick in the doors and go into the area and be like, all right, I'm going to attack this thing and this thing and this thing. Yeah, which is that's so much of the fun for us. And I think in Idle Champions, you get to experience a fair amount of that as well. You get to blast lots of bad guys, and what happens? Boom, treasure comes out. You get to go pick it up and gain power. So those are all there. I mean, that's the ingredients that we love.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned a dual-wielding ranger kicking in a door, because on the screen just above you, there's like Caddy Bree at the top, but the green ranger below that is Morgaine. That's Morgan Webb's character, who is a ranger who kicks in doors and dual wields and stabs people, right? Like, that's her character.
That's it.
It's a trip. I don't have a build with Melf in it yet. Because I was just that's the thing I was working on just before I started this, was getting that set up at home so I could pull it up, but I don't have it just yet. I'm very curious to see how he plays, because they gave him a customizable like spell support design where he just makes the spells he wants for the group, which makes sense. So
Yeah,
I'm excited to see
yeah.
it.
Being able to, and that's folks have asked me, oh, how does Melf look in 5th edition? And I had to tinker around with it a couple of times. I'm not 100% sure, just because there's a lot of, there's some pretty strong difference between 1st edition and 5th edition, and the gameplay and expectations. So there's those challenges. And I think some people are like, well, is he an Eldritch Knight? I'm like, no, because Eldritch Knight doesn't really have that spell research, the spell making capability. And they're a powerful knight who has some magic that they tap into.
They're like basic combat mages, kind of like more of a fighter than a mage. Yeah,
correct. And so, as appealing as that is to the hack and slash power gamer side of me, I'm still there's still an 8-year-old boy inside of me that wants to beat up stuff and get all the treasure and that sort of thing. But I really feel like having the support spells, a bit of the fighting capabilities, a little tougher. He's not afraid. He's able to engage in close combat when needed. But the real power or his center is the magic and being able to create magic and research magic, and that was important. That was one of the differences. So still finding that balance. I've had a couple different builds and played in a couple different games. Really fun games. So if I can give a shout out to a couple adventures that we did for 5th edition 5e, where Mike Merles was dungeon mastering Joe Manganello, myself, and a couple other guys. Joe was playing Archon, I was playing Melf, with these epic level adventures. One was at Founders and Legends, which is a stream that I do around my father's birthday as a celebration just at his birthday. And that was great. That was the first time we did it. And then at GaryCon 11 in 2019, Mike ran and we streamed it, an epic level adventure with Melf and Archon. And they're both on YouTube if you search those.
Yeah.
They're kind of fun. And it's a continuing adventure. We were gonna do a part 3 here at GaryCon 12 to carry this adventure forward one more chapter, but of course world circumstances and the coronavirus made that a little bit more challenging, so we're going to have to shift that further down the road, but we're going to continue that adventure. And for those of you who are, I imagine many of you are familiar with Thurisdan, I think that's who's behind this whole thing. It's dark powers out there, because obviously Melf and Archon probably not the type that would typically hang out together. Melf kind of a little bit of a goody two-shoes, right? Pretty narrow focus and pretty convinced that he's right. And then Archon, well, the whole Hand of Ekman thing kind of indicates maybe not on the side of wheel. However, Mordenkainen is a central character in Dungeons and Dragons, particularly in Great World of Greyhawk, and he's a supporter of the balance, which obviously if you're neutral, the balance, why is it important? You don't know, how do you know what light is if there's no darkness? You don't want one side to get overpowered and maybe throw the multiverse off of its center and create some sort of cataclysm that would lead to the end of time. So you need to keep the balance, right? Things have to be together. And of course, I trusted Melf's work with Mordenkainen over many years and trust his judgment. And in this instance, as far as I can tell from the adventure thus far, we're going against forces that would be considered evil to Melf. So I have no qualms about doing that. But these are some great adventures. And man, I tell you, Mike Merles is just a fantastic dungeon master with his, really the expressions and the pacing and the tone of voice that he gives. He really paints a good picture, creates the tension, which is very exciting. To me, it was probably the first game we played was probably the best game of D&D I'd played in almost a decade. I mean, I had that much fun playing. So.
I remember, because I haven't played with Mike Merles, but I've watched a few streams where he's DM'd, and he did a Jox Machina one at the Stream of Many Eyes two years ago, I guess now. And I just love how, as a DM, when somebody says that they want to do something, he doesn't go to the rules right away. He's like, I'll let you do that, but you have to, like, oh yeah, you can attempt that, but you have to roll this, and he's just it's a give and take. It's he's collaborating with you on making what you want to do happen, and that's always fun to watch.
Yeah, and I think that's an important part of Dungeons and Dragons, and advice that my father gave to everyone. If you read the first edition Dungeon Master's Guide, is it's your game. This is your world. These rules are guidelines, but take it and make it your own. It doesn't have to be prescribed. And if in your world you want things to work this way, then do that. And I also think that it helps gameplay and keeps you in this, I guess it's the suspension of disbelief that we get into when we're role-playing, right? We kind of immerse ourselves into our characters and we're flowing. If we have to stop and refer to a rules book, it breaks that the synergy that you have going there, the vibe and the energy. So sometimes you just say, oh, okay, I'm going to let that work, or this may not be the exact way it happens, but I'm going to consistently giving people consistency and believability and keeping the game moving, and also kind of advancing the story or creating the enjoyment. It's a game, right? So that's what we're there to do, is to have fun and give somebody that chance to do something cool, maybe, as long as it's not ill-advised. There definitely has to be consequences. Yeah,
sometimes
like I said,
the ceiling is only 15 feet tall, right? So
sometimes the ceiling is only 15 feet tall. Yeah, or so if you're going to attack the dragon and you don't win initiative, it can be bad. When they breathe their breath on you and they have full hit points, it's ugly in the old system. Yeah. I got TPK'd yesterday. That very same thing. I think it was ironic because the creature. I think this is neat. It's a little off topic from Melf, but it's still cool. I created a Thunder Frost Dragon. It's a blight worm for World of Ocarine, which is a world setting I made up, kind of based more on a Middle Eastern culture, a more Middle Eastern vibe to it. So after my last deployment, I came back from Iraq, and a lot of the environmental concerns that you would face in a game were prevalent in my mind. So the world has, it's very hot. I wanted to accentuate the difficulties of walking through the desert and being at 130 degrees and the wear and tear that does on someone. But there was an area that's the Blighted Lands, a cataclysm that basically created almost like a magical radiation area and destroyed a very verdant land. And out of this, strange mutations, creatures come, and one of them was a Thunderfrost Dragon, which is a mixing of blue and white together. And so this Thunderfrost Dragon had taken over a mountain stronghold of the dwarves and Mount Gigantor. And so I knew about this. I'd written the adventure with my friend Jeff Talanian, and I was playing with the group. And of course, we came to the end of pretty close to the end of the time, and I discovered this dragon. It had polymorphed itself, but it turned on us and sprouted into this dragon, and all those wonderful things I thought about. Oh yes, a blue and white. It'll breathe a white lightning that will be cold and electricity. It'll do 1.5 times damage if you're wearing metal armor. And I was like, oh no, I'm playing a ranger in metal armor. We just lost it. And sure enough, I also blew my saving throw, and that was curtains for Sinifred, the ranger. He went out. So sometimes you never know how the dice are going to fall. And even though it wasn't, I guess that's part of the story. Sometimes you don't win, and you got to figure out a way out. Now, none of us made it out of that one. It was a Gary Con one-shot con game, so it wasn't a big deal. But, as the DM, if your party who worked so hard lost an initiative roll in the system where we went first edition for this one, so everyone was party initiative, not individual initiative. Yeah. Then you have to think of a way to let the party maybe off the hook. Because I think if everybody dies from one bad roll, man, that's tough. So that's part of that whole game balance thing the GM you have to do. Yeah, and it goes both ways. I was doing a Tomb of Annihilation with my play group, and there's a beholder boss on one of the levels. And we get in there, and he turns away from my character and is like killing our rogue.
and I cast blindness, and he fails to save. And my DM just kind of just stops, and he looks at me, and he's like, all right, you could pick the main eye or the other eyes, but you don't get to blind all of them.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, main eye, please.
Yeah.
And it just, this is one roll completely changed everything.
That reminds me of a Melf story. I was playing Melf in a game when I was a young man, first enlisted in the army. And I was in Germany, and I was playing with my group of friends. Many of them still come to Gary Con every year, so it's a great way to see them. But gosh, this was 25 years ago. So I'm playing Melf, and everyone else is playing their big characters from their home campaign. And we were going down into a cavern where there was some sort of great, dragon that was terrorizing the land, and we were going to defeat it. And there was we come down to the edge of a sloping passage, and there's it's like a smooth shore that's kind of bowled out a little bit, and some brackish water, and this large expanse in this cavern. And we have our magical light sources going, and I had the spear of Zagig with me, and so I flew up and hovered above the rest of the group, trying to look and do some scouting of what was out there. And a few other people had wings of flying or various other devices. But up from the water, there's like 3 or 4 people standing on the edge still. Up from the water comes this great black dragon, right? And it breathes its acid onto the people standing on the ground there. And of course, that little bowl-shaped slope created splashback damage. So it did like 1.5 damage to those guys, and it was bad news. But I figured, okay, this is bad. It's a dragon. What can I do? So I break out a disintegrate spell, which again we're playing first edition. I think it just does damage in 5th edition if I remember right. I don't think it disintegrates somebody who does a lot of damage.
Only if I think it can, but it doesn't always. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I knew there was some qualification there because it's a pretty powerful spell. So I threw disintegrate at the black dragon on round 2, and it failed its saving throw, rolled a 2, and so it disintegrated, and that was that. This the big bad fight. So yeah, as the DM, that's when sometimes it might be worth, for the sake of the adventure. And this is a philosophy people go back and forth on. Let the dice fall where they may, right? Okay, but that can work against the party a lot of times. So I think letting the creature get a legendary save as like some of the big creatures get legendary actions or legendary saves, that can go a long ways to creating a good amount of tension and excitement in the story, in the game, and let that victory that they get eventually be more meaningful than just the disintegrate. And same thing, if it's also good for the party to lose sometimes and be forced to barely escape, or to lose something that they treasure, so that when all that is part of, just like a good movie or whatever, right? You get the build that tension up, and I really hate that guy. He's like, he always escapes from us, or we're gonna get him, Darth Vader, that bad, and then you get your victory, and you're like, yes. So that's important. I think that's as a DM, you learn that over the years, is how to build that tension, how to engage and excite your players. Is it going to be some sort of role play opportunity? Is it going to be some diplomatic actions that really excite this one player, and how are you going to weave all those things together to make the tapestry that keeps your group engaged and talking, 10 years later, reflecting on some of the great issues we've had.
And I mean, I gotta say, like, those moments when they're done right, you just never forget them. Like we, in that Tomb of Annihilation dungeon that we finished, which was a wonderful dungeon, we managed to, as a party, successfully fight, defeat, and kill that iteration of Acerak at the end, which you're not really supposed to, but we did, and it made it so much more of a nice sort of like cap to the end of the adventure, that you didn't show up there and just get TPK'd, or he's got a lot of escapes and outs in the book for ways that he can do stuff and just leave or whatever, but if your barbarian chases him down and grapples him so he can't move, and another one of your casters puts silence on him, he can't do anything verbal or somatic. He doesn't have a lot of options.
Yeah.
And my DM was just kind of like, I don't know what to do. Like he's gonna get beaten to death at this point, which is what happened. But it was.
There is not level drain in the 5th edition anymore, so I'm not sure they did. But I believe did a lich have level drain when it touched you in the old one? I can't believe I don't remember that. It's because I didn't fight a lot of liches because they were dangerous. I ran away.
I was fully expecting us to die, yeah. But we just went for it, and it kind of lucked out. Just because, yeah, he didn't time stop us in the first round and just kill us.
Right. So. Yeah. So I mean, again, sometimes you get lucky. As they say, and sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. But D&D, for me, and I think for so many people, you create this bond of friendship, and that's why I think that's why a lot of the attraction is that you create these really fast friendships with people by going through all these hardships, all these adventures and this fights and loss. Sure, it's all make-believe, but when you're rolling the dice and you're immersed in the story, you're really having those, it feels real enough that you end up having this shared hardship, like a band of brothers or a sports team that wins a championship or something like that. You form this bond with people, and that's why we go back to it over and over again, and we form these lifelong friendships. Like I said, I haven't seen some of my old army buddies, I hadn't seen them in over a decade. Yet when we got together at GaryCon, we immediately fell back into our friendship was there. And what did we talk about and what did we do? We played games together. We talked about our old D&D stories mostly, amongst other things, and other shared experiences. But that was really what forged us closer. My army friends who I wasn't in a gaming group or didn't game with, well, those friendships have kind of faded away. I might see them on Facebook or something, but it's not like we get together or really still stay current. So yeah, those friendships we form last, the bonds we form last decades, and now as long as we can communicate, it's easier to maintain those friendships. But even when I didn't see them for a decade, we got together and we still were able to be friends because of that very strong bond. So it's amazing what this game can do for people, the positives that it has. And my experience carrying on my father's legacy, has been really eye-opening over the last 12 years, just to hear so many people say the positive effects of what Dungeons & Dragons has done for them. And with the 5th edition creating this giant resurgence in people playing Dungeons & Dragons, I hear the same themes over and over again of how it helps people out of difficult situations. It helps them through a learning disability or some sort of social anxiety, or to help them escape from reality when they need it during a particularly hard time, whether it's a loss of a parent, an abusive environment, or whatever the case may be. It's really pretty neat, the power of this game that my father created, just because he liked to play games a whole lot. that was his thing. But it has become a tool that has not only brought a lot of joy, but rendered a lot of good in a lot of people's lives. And that, honestly, I feel pretty proud of that legacy. It's pretty amazing.
I don't know how to follow that up, because that's
that's right. No, it's I just think it's really cool. What I would, I'm so glad that it has done so much good, and I would like people to. Well, I just think it's in juxtaposition to, I'm 49, I'm almost 50, so I was alive during the satanic panic of the 80s, and obviously I had a very unique perspective. But my dad was the one who was being accused of being a Satanist or whatever, or that he had real spells, or or the books were filled with spells, and he used to laugh about that and say, or if I could really cast these spells, do you think I'd be making games, guys? No, come on, that's ridiculous. Or or he would laugh about, some of the, for gust of wind, I think the spell components were a legume, like a bean for gust of wind. So, I mean, some of these are whimsical. He had a sense of humor. He was also a fairly religious guy, Christian guy. So, none of that matters. With the Satanic Panic, people looked at Dungeons and Dragons as something that was scary. Remember, this is kind of the time where you had Ozzy Osbourne being accused of promoting devil worship or Kiss or things of this sort of thing. So that was just a fear that was out there, something different. And I think that also helped kind of make it something that was seen as cool or out of vogue, or and as a teenager, you're looking to identify yourself and maybe break out of what is considered common. So it probably attracted some of your rebel types to Dungeons and Dragons, and these folks grew up to be a lot of creative individuals and work in, whether it's movies, TV, computer games, things like that, and they helped shape our culture. A lot of people learned that they liked to create through playing Dungeons and Dragons, and certainly became ascendant in this new culture, where the geeks are on top. And so I think Dungeons and Dragons has permeated a lot of pop culture, and I don't know that people realize really how important and how influential Dungeons and Dragons was throughout, not obviously our entertainment, but also in other medias. Any game with levels and experience points, and very basically, I guess even the most basic thing that folks probably don't realize is prior to Dungeons and Dragons, your games tended to be oppositional. They were a competitive game. So if you and I were playing a game, that's it. And the game was typically played on a board. So you had a set confines that you were playing a game. It was usually a scenario or a situation that you would start and stop. Here's the beginning, here's the end. It was not continuous. And like I said, you had those confines. That was the game. Whereas Dungeons and Dragons, you are playing with a group of people. It is cooperative. None of you are going to chase win or lose. Now, certainly your characters could die, and that would potentially end that scenario, but you could continue on. Typically, you don't. The confines are your imagination. There's a rule set that allows infinite variation in wherever your dungeon master wants to take you. And your sessions are, you carry experience over from session to session, and your character learns and grows and gains more capability and skill sets. That didn't exist. So just that whole concept, that whole paradigm, now it's all, sure, well, obviously, right? We all play online RPGs, we're developing, we're leveling, and you're scaling up in Idle Champions, right? You're using a lot of these things. But just even that simple thing, the fact that we use role-playing, role-playing is also, like I said, an amazing way to learn. You're learning a lot. I think I alluded to your creative folks learning that they liked to be creators at a young age, typically through dungeon mastering and learning how to build a story, how to identify, how to small group dynamics, how to read an audience, how to build the tension, what are the ingredients that made a successful adventure for them. But it also, those skill sets could also apply to other areas of life. I'm in the military, and I didn't really consider it, but ever since I started, I enlisted as an infantryman out of high school, and I was even in basic training, I was identified, oh, you're a squad leader. Well, why was that? Because they saw I could lead and make decisions, and I knew from Dungeons and Dragons I had plenty of practice at being a leader, at calling the shots. This is what we're going to do. I could take charge. I could do things. I could improvise, right? So you have to, hey, this is what's happening. Oh man, we got to make a plan. Let's do this here. I could speak persuasively, so you had to persuade your party to agree to go on this course of action. Problem solving, all these skills that are useful throughout life, whether it's in the military, a boardroom, or however, maybe interacting just in your social circle. We learn all this stuff through playing Dungeons and Dragons, and we don't even realize that we're learning. We're just having fun. So I think that's why one of the reasons why people love playing D&D so much is because of all these wonderful little benefits that you may not even realize you're getting. And more and more people are enjoying it because it's permeated more facets of our life and become very accepted and normal, like it was not back in the 80s. So if you're one of these young whippersnappers now, you don't know how good you have it. You do.
Yeah. It's funny that you mentioned just laying down the blueprint for just RPGs in general, because I can think of when the first video games with persistent stats and leveling up and hit points and all these things started coming into existence, like in the 80s, and how that's grown, into massive online role-playing games. And they're fun, and they're a great way of spending time with friends. But I also find that the older I get, the more I enjoy the actual in-person interaction with my friends, especially as you have families, and it starts being harder for you to find time to sit down with each other. And so, even just now, during everybody's social isolation, I had promised my DM that I would DM the next adventure after we finished the tomb. And then my daughter was born, and so we've been busy.
Congratulations!
Thank you. Yeah, she's 9 weeks old now, and but I just set up a campaign for him to join on using D&D Beyond to set up the base campaign and what rule sets, and now my wife's making her character for it, and his wife's making her character for it, and we're just gonna start Zoom calling and sharing our desktops and reconnecting. But it's a great excuse to make sure that you spend the time seeing people.
Yes, and that's very important. As here we're talking screen to screen, right? And like you said, social distancing and all that. You're in Canada, I'm in California, so there's a great distance. This is a wonderful and amazing tool, but there is something to be said for being in person, seeing your friends, not only playing the game, but talking to them about their life, and just that important human connection for me goes with gaming. Now, I do have to say I am a very recent believer in the power of, whether it's Zoom or Skype or Fantasy Grounds or whomever it may be, or Roll20, whatever system or however you want to connect with someone to play a game during this time of social distancing. I think that's really satisfying. And it's a great way to bridge. We have this gap. We can't get together and play and continue our game. Just like you said, let's use technology to bridge that gap. And I had to do that for GaryCon. Instead of canceling it entirely, we pivoted to an all virtual convention and had over 2,000 people. In 2 weeks of shifting, we went from less than 100 to 2,000 participants virtually, and over 650, maybe even 700 events last time I looked. So the community needed that. All of us wanted to get together, and this was the best way to do it. So we used the tools we had. We improvised, we adapted, we convinced a lot of people that this was the best way to do, and there was a whole bunch of people who'd never done it before who tried it. So this is cool, and this is a great way to stay connected even during this time of social distancing. And hopefully people will be looking at this in the future and wondering, going, man, social distancing, that was so long ago, and now we're back to a thriving regular community, and we can get to tables and play face to face, and there's no concerns anymore. That would be awesome.
Yeah, that's the hope. Well, anyways, I want to be respectful of your time because we're getting close to 11, and I usually say this takes about an hour. So is there anything else you want to chat about, shout out, etc., before we wrap it up?
I talked about GaryCon, which is the convention I hold every year, typically in typical times. We hold it in Lake Geneva, which is Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, which is my hometown and where my father wrote Dungeons and Dragons and started the company TSR, which published Dungeons and Dragons for many years before Wizards of the Coast became the publishers there. Great team out of Wizards of the Coast in Seattle. So check out GaryCon. I have a couple. If you like to play older editions or even 5th edition, I recently released a classic sandbox style adventure called The Lost City of Gaxmore through my friends at Trollord Games. So if you want to pick that up, go to Trollord Games and check that out. And I'll have a few more modules at my store on GaryCon.com. Go to the bazaar there, and you can see my modules that are there and check them out if you'd like to. Otherwise, thank you to all of the first responders, doctors, nurses, and National Guard folks that are out there now working hard throughout the United States and the similar components worldwide that are fighting the coronavirus. Really appreciate those sacrifices that people are making now to help keep everyone safe. Please, 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 follow those guidelines and help us defeat this. And also, to the greatest extent possible that you can, support your small game publishers and artists and those folks who are not able to go to conventions now, and so much of their income and their ability to create all this great stuff that we enjoy is predicated upon them being able to meet you and me and other folks at conventions to introduce us to their goods. So if you can and you're able, visit some of their sites and give them some of your support. I just think that'd be a great way as a community that we can band together and do some good. Other than that, enjoy playing Melf. I had many, many years of playing this character, just thousands of hours of fun, and I still get to break out his character sheet and play him. Looking forward to the third engagement, third installment of the story with hopefully Mike Merles GMing again soon. And so, Mike, if you're listening, looking forward to that and can't wait to see what you have cooked up for us. But yeah, that's about it. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to talk to you, and so much for getting Melf out there to be a champion in the game. I'm really excited, proud, and it makes me happy.
Awesome. Thanks.
Oh, I'm live now. There we go. So thank you for sticking with us with our pre-recorded interview with Luke, and I'm just bringing in Dylan now for our community Q&A. So I get to return to operator Margaret, which is always fun. So yeah, hopefully he'll be joining shortly. It was awesome to watch the interview. It's too bad we can't do these things live, but time constraints, and especially now, that's just the way these are. So, we're waiting for Dylan to pick up the line, but he should be here shortly. In the meantime, I'm going to address some questions from the community that Erica was wonderful enough to Am I good now? It's Dylan. Okay.
Hello?
Hello.
Just wondering why it's saying failed to load camera when the camera's working just fine right now. I love technology.
Okay.
I know I'm going to try.
Okay. Bye, Dylan. Okay.
Ha.
Okay.
There we go.
Guest view. There we go. There we go. Okay. Dylan's here. I'm here. The sound is working.
Yep.
The sound is working. The sound is working. Fantastic.
There is the sounds. Ding dong. Hello.
Hello. Hello. Okay. Fantastic.
Everybody's got
Okay,
sound.
yeah.
You've got
You get
sound.
sound.
And
You've
get
got
sound.
sound.
And everybody gets sound.
So we've got some questions from the community, or do you have any more comments about your interview with Luke?
I mean, you saw me try to get words in edgewise every once in a while.
That's so cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, you don't even want to interject because he just has like endless stories about Melf. And even when we were like, I got to sit in on at least one of the calls with him where we were talking about Melf and designing him for the game, and it was fun to listen to him just go on a tangent. Like he told us like a half-hour story about how he got the spear of Zagging, most of which I've forgotten, but it was really cool to hear about it at the time because you know that his DM created D&D, and it sounded like he really made him work for the items.
Yeah, that sounded really cool, and like it's nice to hear that. Yeah, they got total party wiped as well, and he lost characters. And
yeah, Otis, rest in peace, Otis.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was just funny because he's like, yeah, and then I took my first character into the 2 before. It's like, oh
gosh.
All right. Well, we know what happened to that character, so
yeah.
Toast.
Okay, so we've got some questions from the community. Let's start those on. Clay Mask is asking, we were told that more gem familiars would be coming out this year. Are they still coming out, or are the patron familiars that we got in the last update replacing them? As Justin mentioned during our spring extravaganza stream, there are more gem familiars coming out just close to when we have multi-adventure mode coming out. So that's...
Oh, is that when he's putting it in? Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's
weird.
What he told me.
Okay, yeah.
The internet.
Staying in the loop is a lot different now that we're all remote.
Yes.
So,
definitely.
Yeah, it's weird.
Missing just the over ear hearing things to be able to.
Yeah. Hearing Justin and Dave argue from across the office, I kind of missed that.
Yeah. And of course, I don't know how I feel about Sean not being able to haze me in person anymore. It's like, I almost miss it, but also not really.
Well, I mean, does anybody really miss hazing? I don't know. There's probably enough of it.
Yeah.
It's okay. We, as part of the emote package for our Twitch channel, and they weren't quite ready for this week, but they should hopefully be ready for Twitch next week. There's
Very
a
excited.
ding dong hello Sean pair of emojis.
Excellent.
So that should be good.
Delighted to hear that because he should be tormented with that too.
Yeah. I'm sure it'll get used during Griddle Champions. So.
Oh yeah. So shall we segue into Griddle Champions that we have?
Sure. Yeah.
If you've checked, who?
No, I was gonna say who likes pancakes. That's really all I got.
I like pancakes.
Yeah.
Do you like pancakes?
I mean, I'm more of a waffle. No, I'm kidding. Pancakes are awesome. Who doesn't like pancakes? It's sugar batter covered in more sugar with maybe some butter or something on top of it as well. So,
nice.
Pretty excited about that.
So to give details, the Griddle Champions will be making its debut tomorrow at 10 a.m. until noon Pacific. And it will feature Sean and community superstar Lee Goldberg, D&D superstar, making the weekend buffs as Idle Champions pancakes. So
yeah.
So
they'll be
tune in there. This
anybody
channel.
wanting to tune into, I mean, when I think about like cooking shows in general, because I love cooking shows. Watching people cook is a strangely satisfying and entertaining thing.
Yes.
In a way that perhaps is more than the sum of its parts because it is just somebody working. But then you get the bonus of you're watching a pancake artist draw with batter, making art. I'm
curious if it's going to be more like Iron Chef cooking show or like Great British Bake Off, just in terms of flavor, because like Iron Chef, it's really panicked or there's dramatic music, and Great British Bake Off, it's like, oh, that didn't turn out as expected, but you're really like invested in it.
Probably the latter. I don't think we can afford Mark Dacascos to make announcements and just stand imposingly in the background.
That's right.
Oh man, I haven't watched an Iron Chef in a long time.
Or like the classic Japanese Iron Chef.
That was great.
Yes,
I remember watching that. Oh. Yeah. I watched before Gordon Ramsay really took off in North America, watched a lot of his UK cooking shows where he was still an aspiring chef, like before he had a 3 Michelin star restaurant, and shows with like Marco Pierre White. who was Gordon Ramsay's mentor, and who was like, if you think Gordon Ramsay's it can be a bit of a jerk, he's got nothing on his mentor, nothing at all. Yeah,
I've
good
watched
shows.
some of Gordon Ramsay's other shows other than like Kitchen Nightmares, and he's actually just seems a lot chiller. So I'm like, okay, this is definitely something you have to put on for that, or Kitchen or whatever.
American television only wants the Ramsay who's turned up to 11 and who's angry, whereas you watch a lot of the UK shows that he did before Kitchen Nightmares took off. You'd see him go to restaurants and genuinely try to help people succeed.
Yeah,
and those were great. Like it was a really entertaining way to watch it, and seeing him enjoying himself, having fun. He'd flip out at somebody sometimes, but like for the most part, he kept it pretty chill. But for American TV, they just want him ranting, like
angry Gordon,
memeable, angry Gordon Ramsay. Yeah. So that's what they use, and not that that's. It's also entertaining in its own right.
Sure, yeah.
But it's not the one that I like the most. I think my favorite one of his was there was a show in the UK called The F Word about 10, 15 years ago now, and he would bring celebrities and amateurs into his kitchen to make stuff, and he wouldn't be too harsh on them, but then he would have lots of celebrities and guests in the restaurant, and like for the most part it looked like he had fun each season. But they did like 4 or 5 series of it, and there was a gimmick where he would raise an animal to be slaughtered in the last episode of each season.
Oh my goodness!
Because he was trying to educate like his family on
where
things come from.
Where things come from.
At the end of one season, they would like kill the pig, which he admitted was a mistake, because his family got really attached to the pig that they had, and killing it was traumatizing.
I can see that.
Just kind of raising animals and humane slaughter, and just trying to make sure that he incorporated that part as well, which I really liked, because
he also named them after like rival UK chefs. Like there was
I think so.
Jamie and Nigella, and
yeah.
Anyway,
he was definitely cheeky. I love those shows. Those shows are great.
Mage Pie is asking us, will we raffle off the pancakes?
Raffle off the pancakes? Oh my god. So they're like these ones, because they're art, like they get made out of something that's more akin to icing sugar than regular pancake batter.
Apparently you can eat them.
You can eat them, yeah. No, it's 100% edible. And they're, I remember having a bit of one at the Stream of Many Eyes when Lee first did an iris. There's a photo of it on our social somewhere where it's like Eric and Satine holding the iris pancake. And I remember it being like, because it had been sitting out for so long at that point that like it was a little dry. Still sweet though. I suppose we could. I don't know how, what kind of legal trouble we can get in trying to mail a rancid pancake.
Yeah, that seems a little bit sketchy.
Yeah. With that much sugar in them, I doubt they even could go rotten. I think it would just get hard. I think it would crust and then break apart. But hell.
But the logistics of that, especially right now, would be questionable.
Yeah, if the you're ordering a book off Amazon and the best delivery date you can get is a month later, infrastructure is a little stretched. There are more important things going on. But you can still watch a pancake being made. And you can watch pancake art.
Zeke's 640 is saying hi to us both and is asking when we're going to get Margaret's cooking show. Unlikely to happen in a C&E context, but my Twitter is basically cooking and lit memes from literature. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You should do that. You should host a cooking show where you are also, reading something really verbose,
in French for fun.
Yeah, if that's fun.
I was just thinking, I was like, okay, for classic what works of literature, what do I have in the house?
I'm going to read Dante's Inferno in the original Italian. It's like,
no, my Italian's not that good. I don't know. I could do the Count of Monte Cristo in French. This is probably my favorite classic piece of literature. But
I saw the movies.
The book is way better. Way better.
Yeah. I mean, I'm reading a translated version of Blood of Elves right now.
Oh.
Which you can, like, as you know, the translation's good, but you can tell you're like, in Polish, I bet this is a bit different.
Yeah, fair.
Fantastic, by the way. If anybody likes fantasy books, totally recommend it.
Now Eric's commenting that I should be socially distancing her champions in her formation. Well, they all live in the same house, so I think that's their designated quarantine group.
Yeah. I mean, also, like, the space in between the formation spots is like, looks like it's, a little more than arm's length. So I don't know. As long as they're not coughing.
No, it seemed to be okay. And yes, I am missing one right now, but that's because I'm still doing my first initial favorite run for Greengrass. Do they really live in the same house, says Eric? He's not sure. Well, I don't know. Maybe it's like the Idle Champions dormitory.
I am also doing a run right now.
Yeah.
I realized, so I can't remember what was going on. Oh, I remember what it was. So this time last year I was in Hawaii for my honeymoon. That's what it was. So I didn't finish the variants for Ayla's. So I'm actually doing that right now.
Oh, well, speaking of Ayla, I've been working on my Idle Champs coloring challenge. So, yeah, see it? It's my Ayla so far.
Is her face blue?
Yeah, so I've done her skin blue, like picks in pre-Roman Britain, because I figured if anyone would fight Romans, it would be Ayla. But that's just some flavor.
Fair enough. Cool. Do we have any questions? What's up?
More questions? Okay. Colette is asking, is Melf called Melf because he's a male elf?
Well, Luke mentions it at the beginning of the interview, and I imagine a lot of people missed it because they haven't tuned in yet. But basically, he thought it was a funny name.
So
I mean, it was the early '80s, and how old would he have been at the time? I think Luke is like 12 years older than me, so he would have been like an adolescent,
right,
at the time. Yeah. Loses his first character in Tomb of Horrors, which, fair enough. Like, does anybody really make it through the Tomb of Horrors? And then, decided Melf was an amusing name and went with it.
Melf the elf. On the shelf.
Melf the elf. Yeah, Melf, the male elf.
On the shelf.
Yeah. He actually, as part of the whole process of working with him, he sent us, like, scans of his original handwritten character sheets that are on, like, 30-year-old, 40-year-old, like, lined paper. And I shared part of one of them in the champion spotlight. It's kind of surreal because you can tell, you're like, wow, he was definitely a kid, because that handwriting is a child's handwriting.
Correct.
Yeah.
And Alpha Krull is asking, was Melf placed in slot 12 to get champions available in that slot for Strahd? Is that another complexity of layering for choosing slots for your champs? Short answer, this is all part of Justin's masterminding everything.
That is part of it, yeah. Because the only other available champions in slot 12 for Strahd require feats, which, I mean, there's no what do you call it? There's no bad luck protection timer on getting feats. So whether or not you manage to get the intellect feats for Neris or Zorbu is kind of up in the air. But
if you get Melf now, or if you join later and do it at a temp gate, then there's your Strahd viable champion. Bogart Ramshackle is asking, what kind of character would you roll up to play with Luke / Melf?
Hey, I want to hear that, Margaret. What would you play?
Probably just the most supportive bard I possibly could. Just be like, yes, keep doing your thing. You're doing great. You're doing great. Take furiously writing notes. Yeah. Just sit back, and you're like countering spells and just trying to do stuff to help out. Yep. Just like, you're doing great, but less sarcastic.
Fair enough. Yeah, you know, it's interesting because like Melf is such an archetypal fighter wizard. I think I would want to play like, because traditionally I like overly complex character designs.
You don't
that
say.
Are a bit much. Yeah, I don't know, big surprise. I think I would probably use it as an opportunity to play one of my simpler characters, like just like a fighter, play a fighter.
Nice.
Although the subclass I've been looking at ever since it came out in that Explorer's Guide to Wildmount book is the Echo Knight. Echo Knight, is that what it is? Where you're a fighter that can create like after images of yourself. That looks so fun. I want to try that.
Those look fun. Yeah, there's a bunch of cool stuff coming out. So.
Yep. Sorry, the only view I have of you is the stream window, which is delayed. So
okay.
Yeah.
It's all right. Alternate reality, Margaret, or slightly delayed, Margaret.
Well, I mean, you can set Zoom for you to pipe your XSplit window through Zoom, and it'll work. But it's all good. I'm just happy things are working. It's not broken.
It's not broken? Great.
Yeah. Nothing's broken. So let's just keep going.
Keep going. Okay. Bogart Ramshackle is asking in, which of those champions is the worst roommate on real world Idle Champions?
Which are the ones like on screen?
On screen.
I mean, there's a few evil champions in that formation. I don't think any of them would make good roommates.
Yeah. Maybe Krull?
Maybe Krull.
Like, depends how big the dormitory is, because he could take up a lot of space.
Like, I like heavy metal music. Krull strikes me as liking heavy metal music. You know?
I don't particularly like heavy metal music, so...
Oh. Well, you're lost. I thought you were in Germany. You don't like metal music? No, you like techno, right? That makes sense. Yeah. Did you go to any of those big EDM festivals back when people could still go to festivals?
Yes, I did. And they were lots of fun. But
Which ones did you go to? I'm curious.
I went to some of the local ones around Munich. So I like Back to the Woods or Schalemschift. I can't. And then I was supposed to go to Fusion in Berlin, just outside of Berlin this summer, but not sure that's happening this year.
It seems unlikely. Yeah.
Yeah.
What about industrial music? You know, halfway in between alternative metal and, you know, it's all tangentially related, right? I mean, all music comes from love for making sound.
Yeah.
I don't know.
We'll see.
What I got.
I don't know. Size 7 is saying, considering there are characters that are mortal enemies, specifically Dritz and Artemis, would they really quarantine together? I'm like,
it's true. Although, I mean, these days, not to spoil anything, but like, is Artemis really the bad guy anymore? I don't know.
Sort of like, and which Artemis is this? Do we just have like the Eternal Artemis?
I think so. I mean, he's not a shade in our version, so we went with an earlier version, who is probably very much an enemy of Dritz. But these days, because Artemis is still in books, 32 years later, he's not quite the bad guy anymore.
30 year. Yeah. Magniska has said that I was lucky enough to play in one of Gary's campaigns in 1984.
Wow.
Ran the sessions for 14 months before work forced me to move from the area. Wow, that's awesome. Magniska,
cool.
Would love to hear the stories you have there, because that sounds awesome.
Yeah. Just making sure. Sorry, I'm like I am for the first time ever looking at the new mod view that Twitch added, and it's a lot to take in. Just looking at the screen.
Oh yes. Oh, and Eric's asking, are you guys going to share on stream some of the awesome coloring sheets that our lovely and talented community have colored? I think that would make a great slideshow for the preamble or for the end.
Yeah, we should do that.
Yeah.
That's a great idea. The real trick is collecting them in that there are quite a few places they're showing up right now.
Yeah, I'm aware. Are you planning on compiling the list, or I figured that was a me task?
I figured it was a you task also.
Great, so we're aligned.
Not to lump it on you. Somebody named Famiji in the Discord has posted like 6 or 7.
Oh, fabulous.
Yeah. And they're all nicely shaded and stuff.
I can't wait to check them out.
Yeah, they've done Havilar and Ayla and Archon and Naeli and Cathris. And the fan art channel in the Discord is starting to fill up with them.
Awesome. I haven't been in the Discord much today because I was doing things.
I think I'm set to invisible, actually.
Yeah,
I am.
Secrets.
Well,
so, we're often there, but sometimes people talk to us.
I like to have if my status is set to online, like I'm green on the Discord, that means that I am inviting people if they want to say hi.
Yeah.
So when I'm invisible,
Likewise.
It's because I'm trying to get something done and I'm trying not to pay attention to Discord. So don't take it as an offense. It's
Yeah, it's the same. We're always there, but we want to make sure that when we're online that we're inviting.
Actually online, yeah.
Yeah. Voxsagan is asking what's an ETA on another kobold.
Another kobold. Well, I'll be honest with you. There are no kobolds in our list of incoming champions in the first half of this year.
Yes.
Currently. That isn't to say that we don't ever want to do another one. We do have 3 of them. But yeah, there aren't any incoming right now. And there are quite a few other monstrous races and even just other available 5e races that we haven't tackled yet. So it would be nice to get some more of the others as well.
And
I want a Triton. A Triton would be nice.
Yes.
Yeah, Triton. I mean, we have a Genasi coming. There's a bunch of stuff.
That's cool stuff. And Jillica is asking, hey, I've been getting messages of server issues and server connection issues. What's up with that? Long story short, we've been having some problems. Particularly yesterday morning was a little bit rough for us, but things seem to be improving and is something that we're definitely watching out for. So thanks for bearing with us. But yes, we had some server issues yesterday morning.
Yeah, there are more people using platforms online right now than usual by a lot.
Yeah,
so we're paying as best attention as we can because it's been pretty noticeable on our end that more people are logging in.
Yeah. And Wilhelm Scream. Any plans to offer tips for what an optimal damage-based formation might look like for a given player? Speed and gold find are much easier to figure out since there are far fewer moving pieces.
Yeah, so it's a really hard thing to give advice on just because everybody's account is so unique in like what gear they have, which characters they've unlocked, all that stuff. The undisputed top tier DPS for the game right now is Zorbu.
Yes.
And trying to set up a formation to best buff him is currently the best way to go. Other strong DPS include Strix in slot 11 is a very strong DPS right now. Artemis in slot 3 is a very strong DPS right now, but requires a lot to make good.
Yeah, a lot of finagling.
Yeah, and then kind of getting tiers down, Krond is a really powerful DPS, but requires a lot of strong or evil champions. Dritz is a really good DPS if you have all the companions of the hall unlocked.
Yeah. Or then do Dritz and then Artemis Observe is fun.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't even use Dritz in my Artemis formation. I steal buffs from Cadibri.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm doing now, so I can't argue. But
I haven't played enough with the new Bird song, but she seems really good, but not Zorbu good.
Not Zorbu good. That's fair.
Yeah, I'm sure if somebody had S tier and then A, B, C, Birdsong is probably an A, maybe a B, whereas Zorbu is the only one in S. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. I just like having the options, right? It's fun to be able to, complete all the objectives with a variety of champions.
D-Plays is asking, is Narak good now?
So Narak is in an interesting case in that his support ability is astounding, but it's so broken that we capped it. Like, you don't get any equipment that makes it better. You don't get any upgrades really that make it better. It's a crazy powerful support ability that can amplify other support abilities, which is a little dangerous to put into the game, I think. That's my fault. I came up with the idea, and Justin's like, "Yeah, we'll try that.
We'll try that.
Nerf your version of it because my version of it was worse."
Oh, that would have been great.
And we've kind of been like evaluating it, and it's like it's amazing up to a point, and then once you get a certain gear threshold with your supports, then it stops being as useful as having another dedicated support. But certainly, it's very good for a while, and if you have the feats to increase wisdom for some of those other champions, you can do some pretty heinous stuff with it. Yeah.
Cool.
But he's not he's a DPS support who is basically 99% DPS with one astounding support ability that doesn't get a lot of upgrades.
And Wargod is asking, which tier is Grama, then, in your opinion?
I think she would have been an A before we did the debuff change, and she's probably a B now.
B tier.
Would be my guess. Just like she's still good. She's still a good tank. Her support ability is still strong. She can still debuff enemies, so she's still really strong. And I think once players unlock the intelligence feat for her, people are going to be using her in Strahd formations because it'll open up some options. But yeah, she was really good when base ultimate damage was double dipping on debuffs, and she's a little less good now, but she's still pretty good.
And Raggard is asking a question. Would it be possible in the future to complete patron challenges or free play requirements while doing time gate / event stuff? Like in the same adventures, or because multi-adventure mode should minimize the too much to do, because you'll be able to do a couple things simultaneously. But
that's going to be intense.
Yeah, I'm excited, but also concerned, which is usually my default state for anything. It's new. I'm excited, but a little bit worried about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting for sure. Yeah. I don't even know what to think about it. I'm going to have to see what kind of UI comes together for it and how we're doing it, because it already can be a lot to manage one formation.
Yeah, now you've got lots of formations. Loki88 is asking, is favor earned based on gold dropped or gold collected? I.e., do abilities like Kithritz's Hordeperson or Morgaine's paid up front slow down favor progression?
That's a good question.
I
know what I think the answer is.
Likewise.
I would probably want someone like Justin or Mark to give a definitive answer on it, just to make sure that everything is taken into account. My guess is that if you have anything that is reducing your gold find, like having Kithris in your formation, then
that will affect your favor.
That's just gone, and what you get.
That's what I thought too. Yeah.
But I would want to make sure that somebody who actually implemented that code answers it definitively.
And Cassius335 is asking, specifically you, Dylan, and Nayeli plus Dead Boss equals no more enraged stacks, which has a nasty habit of leaving one last invincible minion. If the boss levels can't be rigged to complete when the last boss dies, is there some sort of unfair status created so that the last minion will actually take damage?
I just want to scroll up to that question so I can actually read it.
Number 20. Sounds like it might be a...
Where is it?
Question 20.
Oh, right. I should open that doc. I was looking at chat for some reason.
Okay.
That's all
No.
good. It's all good. I got good
Okay.
internet. 220. All right. Now it's asking me to give you permission to view the document. Alrighty. So you're killing the boss, and you have Naeli in the formation, but you're ending up with an invincible minion.
Yeah,
it sounds, huh? That's an interestingly put together. So I'm guessing that you had someone like Ayla or somebody in your formation that is increasing, all of your damage based on there being other enemies still there. And so once you kill enough of them, you're not getting enough amplified damage on the last target. Because with a boss area, it's like it's supposed to. You're not done until you've actually cleared all the minions that spawn and the boss. So
yeah,
it just sounds kind of like bad luck to me, where the way that you have your formation built isn't going to be able to do enough damage to kill the last solo enemy, and you might have to reload it and retime all of your debuffs and everything to do it again. If you haven't already, that's when I would start swapping in debuff champions, like swap in Warden for enough for 4 hex stacks, and then swap in Grama enough to debuff it, and swap in Ayla to debuff it. Start taking advantage of the bench stack and stuff to maybe hopefully kill the boss.
There we go.
The last enemy. That would be my guess.
The man himself. And the Chuko is asking, what are our chances of getting heroes like Big B or Mordecai?
So I don't know hardly anything about Big B or Tensor or Mordenkainen in the sense that it's funny actually. Coincidentally, either earlier this week, Lore You Should Know re-released the video of Greg Tito talking to Chris Perkins about Mordenkainen and the history of Mordenkainen, or Mordenkainen, both of which are the correct way to say it. And there is no official stat sheet for him.
Right.
They've put in close enough stuff so that if people wanted to incorporate him into a game, that they could kind of have a way to do it. But he's a god tier wizard, right? Who can do anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Blade Dragon 997 is saying Mordecai's more of a patron level character than champion. I think
yeah. So, I mean, I would love to do something with Mordenkainen in the game because, that's Gary's wizard. That's pretty awesome. And same with Elminster being Ed Greenwood's avatar, more or less. Anyways, it would be very cool to do something with Mordenkainen. And there is a book that he shows up in 5e.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, granted, the way in which he shows up is pretty limited, because he's not a core part of the adventure per se, but he's there in Barovia at that time.
Yep. I'm running that adventure now, so that's fun.
Yeah? Did you guys run into him, or?
No, I'm DMing, so they haven't run into him again. But
yeah, it's one of those things where I don't think we have an office Curse of Strahd campaign. I don't think there's a chance that we're going to come across him in that campaign, but it's cool that he's just kind of there. Anyways, would love to do something with Mordenkainen. I don't know anything about Big B or Tensor or the other casters who created the spells that dominate D&D spell books for decades. It's awesome. Weird because this is a play group that Luke was playing it with his dad. And, stuff, right? And they're legendary in that all of their adventures and their deeds and their spells got immortalized in all the subsequent books. They're around still, and so it's this neat kind of mythology. Sort of behind
the curtain.
Yeah. That was my favorite part of talking to Luke before. Was he's like, well, I wanted to do this thing, and so I he's like, tells the story of creating Melf's minute meteors and Melf's acid
There.
arrow, and then like how his friend who played Tensor created Tensor's floating disk and why, it's just kind of
Awesome.
it's a trip, because how many of us have played D&D games where we create spells that exist forever afterwards, so.
And Magniska has just gotten back to us. He says it was one of the best 14 months of D&D I've ever played since beginning in 1975. Gary was a god of a DM. So awesome. That's great.
That is a really cool memory to have that I'm jealous of. I wasn't playing D&D in 1975. I was -7. So
I was negative. Green Samurai 23 is asking, is the Weekend Champ spoiler with pancakes tomorrow then, or can you share? And I'm not sharing that anymore.
We're gonna pancake it.
We're gonna pancake it.
Yeah.
I'm not stealing Sean's thunder.
Yeah. Ding dong.
No.
Hello, Sean. Guess what? We've spoiled your first episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm not that mean. And Play a Dragon and 997 asking Kenku Bard when.
Oh, that would be cool.
It'd be cool.
Yeah. I mean,
but,
what do they do though? Like, I mean, I guess like if they can mimic things, if they've heard some songs, they can just play those songs. So that's all they can do. That'd be interesting. I certainly want a Kenku. One of Jim Zub's recently published books, those like D&D for kids or beginners or whatever they're called, they have lore characters in them too, right? Like, it was the only place I've ever seen Shandy's last name printed was in one of those books.
Oh.
Yeah, Frequent, for those who are wondering.
Yeah.
And there is a Kenku monk in there. That I was like, let's put this in, and I like slammed it on Chris's desk, and I'm like, put this monk in. It's a Kenku. It's awesome. And it didn't work.
Oh, we can try again. Maybe we'll try like bribing Chris with brownies.
Just like brownies.
Yeah, that might work.
Yeah. I think the real trick might be to bribe Haley with brownies.
Yes.
And then, and then be like, all you have to do is ask your dad this every day.
Yeah.
No, that's mean. That's really mean.
Yeah, and he'll get you back for that within like 3 years, as soon as your daughter can talk. So.
Yeah, she just gurgles now, but but it's super cute.
Garo was asking for a new 2020 combination hint this week.
Oh, yeah. It's been a while since we did one of those. I mean, we tweeted out some.
Yeah.
I think it was the last time I mentioned anything.
Not last Q&A, but the Q&A before that, I gave one which was false identity. And they haven't figured that one out yet. So.
Oh, really? They want more clues before they figure one out?
I know.
You see, I mean, we can't outthink a hive mind, so there's only so far we can take these before they're really obvious.
Yeah.
And where did I put? I'm just looking for where I put the.
And they found out some like, oh, this was embarrassing that I did. I missed that they had found one, so I gave a hint for one that they had already found. That was.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But it was for a Ring of Winter, and it was like, okay, it's Jill Shield from divination, and it's an artifact, and it's like, okay, and then eventually I'll just drop in the phrase like the ice that never melts has melted when when it was finally spring, and it's like, oh, they found that out in January. Awkward. Never mind then.
You know what? I need to look at what's been found, because it's been a while since I look at this. Because I remember most of them were done, and like they're the ones that are really hard that were still there, and I don't want to give too many hints on them because
like I figured false identity.
As soon as they start to understand how I thought about it, they'll find all the others.
Yes, and I figured out how you thought about it now, and I can't say that because once you look at them with that in mind, that's.
I will say.
I figured out your pattern.
One is not for Morgaine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And false identity.
I'm just like, wait, which one's that for? And I'm like looking at the list.
Oh, come on. It has a synonym for it. Yeah, okay.
I know which one it is. Yeah. I just worry about giving too many hints because because you guys are smart.
And, like, I say something and then figured it out. It's like, oh, I made a secret code. Well, these ones were obvious, but, like, part of me wants to create another secret code that's just a couple of artifacts just to really just throw people off from...
Yeah, well, I mean, people know that they've found the 20 and 20. They know they've found some of those because they're the only ones that give 2 chests.
Yeah, that's fair.
Nothing else gives 2 chests. So they're silver chests, but they're chests.
No. So it was a lot. Wants to go back to your conversation about Zorbu. Speaking of Zorbu being good, what's your overall philosophy on buffs versus nerfs? I feel that most champions are bad just because their names aren't Zorbu, Krull, or Averin. Would you guys rather boost a champ than nerf others?
So I think philosophy-wise, the intention is never to just nerf a whole bunch of champions to make them feel like they're weaker, because that doesn't feel good. But there are always obvious outliers, and so if you look at the game right now, the most obvious outliers for being potentially too powerful are Zorbu and Krull.
Yes.
Unquestionably. One of them is an infinite scaling DPS, and the other was triple dipping debuffs with before the change, and now only double dips them, but it's still it makes them an order of magnitude more powerful than other supports. So, looking at that, it's like, okay, do they require systemic changes? Like, does part of the game need to change in order for them to be more in line with everything else? Because I would imagine that at some point they will get tuned a little bit down. But it might be as simple as they just receive fewer buffs with the next stock cap increase than other champions, right?
They get a little bit less love because they're the favorite child right now.
Yeah, we spend more time looking at champions that are either underrepresented because we know players aren't using them, or they feel like there's something seriously wrong with their design. Like, we tried for something and it didn't work, which has happened before. And those ones we look at, it's like, okay, well, what can we do to give them a significant boost? So if you look at the changes in the most recent balance update, it's a very good example of how we approach it. Like, didn't touch Azaka because we didn't want to potentially break anything that's being done with Azaka right now.
Yes.
Didn't touch Gromma really because we knew that the ultimate damage change to how it reads debuffs would have an effect on how Gromma is used now. And then the other ones, had from mild to significant changes to try and shift things around. So
Hitch, for example.
Hitch. I haven't even used Hitch yet. I'm still getting used to switching stuff around. It's
and it's
crazy.
It's been a week for us too.
Yeah.
Contrary to belief, we do other things than just then play idle champions at work.
Well, I mean, maybe you do. I'm kidding.
I'm like, I know that's a lie.
Yeah. I play a lot of other video games too.
Volkswagen. Rosie's pretty.
Volkswagen?
No, it's not Volkswagen. Volkswagen. Anyway, Rosie's pretty low on the list. How about giving her some tank abilities?
So that's an interesting question. I don't know. I mean, you could argue that Rosie B. Stinger's a tank in a way, but she's mostly just a super DPS sometimes.
Kind of tank.
Yeah. I don't know if that's the direction that we'll go in when we get around to looking at her. Yeah. I mean, sometimes a champion's problem has less to do with what their design is like and more to do with what else is available in their slot.
Yes.
Voxin,
thank you.
Yeah. There are multiple viable non-Delina champions in slot 8. Right?
So Alpha Curl is asking, are you allowed to make the codes as well, or request codes, or who at CNE is the code maker? Are we all allowed to do it?
So, I mean, we have a back-end thing where we can just make codes.
Yeah.
Where most of our staff are able to do it. Whoever is running their own show tends to make the code for their show. Yeah. So Margaret made these ones. I did the hidden combinations.
For 2020. And technically we could go and make more hidden codes, but also we just don't necessarily do that.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
it was a fun little mini scavenger hunt that I'm
Yeah.
sure people will eventually figure out the rest of them.
It was a lot saying that the code maker is right next to Mars's shiny button. Mars has had some slightly ridiculous luck opening shinies on his show, and the running joke is that we have a button that
God, that would be a pain in the ass to implement.
just be like, this is the shiny button. We
Yeah.
put on the shiny button for Mars before his show.
Yeah,
So-
that's some pure RNG there. That's
Yeah.
opening feats and shinies. Yeah.
If we were really thinking, we could have done for April Fool's Day was gotten some of those easy buttons from Staples, spray painted them silver, and then sent them to our streamers. Like, this is your shiny button. But
Yeah. I don't know that we'll be sending anything physical
Yeah.
to anybody for a while though. It's
No touching.
Like I got a stack of Gale Force 9 minis. On my
yeah,
desk
I
at
saw
work.
those. I'm like, those look cool. But
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, they're all for Descent into Avernus, and we were gonna give them away as part of the next Descent into Avernus update, but that'll be on hold until we can actually all be in the office.
yeah,
Yeah,
that'll be fun when we can all get back together. I'm sure
Yeah.
we'll get donuts. And at that
well, we'll
point,
get something.
we'll do something.
Yeah, I do kind of miss getting lunch and kind of watching Picard on Fridays. In the
Yeah.
office is fun.
And like some of the Office D&D, we should.
I haven't
Yeah,
played Office
oh,
D&D
we
this
do.
year.
Okay.
I haven't played it since last year.
Right? You were out.
Yeah.
No.
What's next? What do you got?
Ooh, okay. Garwar. Any reason why Swamp Grandma didn't get touched at all in the update, though? I get not changing Arctic Mountain, but Swamp is rough. That's a Justin question.
That is a Justin question. Yeah. I don't know
Really,
why he opted not to do it.
Yeah. HP Devout 1 has asking any thought about extra free drops going into the second month of the stay-at-home orders? Do you mean the Twitch drops or like our play-at-home code? Because
Yeah,
yeah,
I don't know.
I don't know.
So Twitch drops, like we tried it.
Yeah,
We got a varied response.
yeah. I'd
It
still
will be happening again for one thing.
Yes.
Because we had originally announced the Penny Arcade, Green Flame Gym, and all that stuff. But that will be happening at some point. But we don't have a date set for it because, these
Things-
social, physical distancing orders and everything have shifted a lot of stuff around. So,
yeah. So we're sorting that
hasn't
out.
happened yet.
But as soon as we have the date, we will let you know, and we will let you know with lots of warning.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
still think we should do one more Twitch drops with the stuff that we have for the Spring Extravaganza. But
I don't know. Would people like that? Should we do those drops again? I mean, they'd
Yeah.
be the exact same ones, so it'd be
yeah, but look, to play devil's advocate, we didn't give it enough necessarily as much warning as we could. But we'll see.
yeah. I suppose we could do that for a second time.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
just
It's kind of
make
a-
it very clear that if you've already gotten these drops, you won't get them again. But
No, you can't get them a second time.
Yeah.
And yeah.
yeah,
Okay. Yeah. We'll look at that. There's at some point we can do it. It's the trick is it requires some stuff on our end
yes.
to do.
It's some coordination. And asking at Alpha Curl is asking at a bit more EU/Australian friendly times. Okay, I have some comments on this. I used to live in Europe. I know the time zones. For the C&E stream, we were streaming from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. European time, which is arguably friendlier than what we did in North America. So just putting that out there. But finding a time that works for Australia, EU, and still fits into Pacific business hours is a little nuts. So, yeah, it would have to definitely something we were aware of, or at least I'm aware of. European time, EU has more than one time zone. Okay, the Central European time zone is a little bit ridiculously large if it goes from Spain to Hungary. But I know there's debate about it. I know that it's not a good idea, but we will we'll try to find a good time and for people around the world that also fits into Pacific business hours. So anyway, that was my rant.
We just need one time.
One time.
Yeah, one 24-hour stream.
Yeah. No, are you volunteering for a 24-hour stream?
I volunteer for the one that we will do probably in November in support of BC Children's Hospital Foundation when we do Extra Life this year. But that's assuming, that's still something that we can do around that time of year. I mean, I don't want to make any assumptions about where we're going to be that far out because I'm not sure where we're going to be a couple months from now. So,
but yes, Australian and European and Asian friends, we hear you, but it's tough for us to find a time that also doesn't involve us streaming in the middle of the night because that would be pretty brutal on us too. Ronan IC is asking, are you aware that the Deacon changes only made him faster, but his buffing is very lacking compared to others in slot 1? Believe that was Justin's intention, but
I mean, I don't know that there's more of an answer for that other than yes.
Yes.
His buffing is better,
but he's more of a speed at this point. And HP Devout 1 got back to us and it was saying the play at home code as opposed to the Twitch drops for. We're going to do that again.
Play at home, play from home, or what was play from home?
Play from home,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see if we end up in a 2 or 3 month remote situation.
But generally, one of us wouldn't make a code that big without talking to other people for, obvious reasons.
Yeah, it's also the way that we have a system set up to make combinations on our end. Codes like the play from home one require one of the developers to go in and code them, as opposed to using the system that we have set up.
Normally Peter does. He's great. Props to Peter. Orcalator, question. Delina has been a bit of a joke in the community. Clearly she needs some loves. Are there any plans of a rework for her?
It's funny because I still like her design a lot. I think she's a well-designed champion, but a champion designed to be in the very back row of a formation just doesn't really work in our game.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I'm not sure. There's a chance she'll get looked at, but when you look at her basic attack, she has one that destroys enemies in a line, another basic attack that blows out a huge AoE of enemies, and her surges in power get really strong. But what she doesn't have is a really good way of pulling buffs into her.
Yeah.
I don't know. The other thing is fundamentally when you think about Delina, she is not supposed to be predictable. She's very much a wild magic sorcerer. But then also she doesn't have a growing self-buff ability that works the way other primary DPSs do. So she could never really be that DPS, and Minsk is a fantastic DPS. So I don't know. Maybe she needs a rework.
We leave it to Justin. He has a joke that every time I can't remember what the condition is, but something. It's every time he's asked about it, he adds a 0 to her numbers.
Yeah.
The question is.
I mean, she'd need a lot more zeros.
Yeah.
Too many of the best buffers are. Yeah, it's hard to dump all of your buffs onto somebody near the at or near the back. So that's one of the biggest things against her for sure.
Yara was saying he adds a 0, but it's after the decimal point. Which is, fair. Acrophyzo is Melf's ultimate underpowered. The analysis on Reddit says it needs to be at least 600 times more powerful, and that the minute meteors hit like a wet noodle.
I don't know. I mean, I haven't actually in my game. I haven't even used them yet, so I haven't even looked. So I'm probably not the right person to answer that question.
That's fair.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, I don't actually know yet. I could try and bullshit an answer, but I haven't used it yet.
No.
In my other window, I'm using a Zorbu formation.
There you go.
But
Classic.
in terms of, so I know how his ultimate is designed to work, and it hits using Bud, which is a little bit different now, especially without the double dipping debuffs. Like, I'm sure if we hadn't made that change, it would probably be hitting a lot harder. But ultimates had a pretty significant shift with the Spring Extravaganza 1.0 launch. So
the meta changes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Meta's always shifting.
Yeah. And Ryu's Mario is asking if we could get a Beholder champion. And there's another request from Separatist Bulbasaur for a Mind Flayer champion. So just, I suppose, more monstrous races as champions.
Sorry, I got distracted by a question that somebody had asked me. What was the question again?
Beholder champion? Or Mind Flayer champions? Yeah.
Almost definitely not. I mean, it's one thing to have a skin where somebody has become a Mind Flayer.
Yeah.
But using a monster as a champion character is highly unlikely.
Thunder Remix is asking, when will Barrowin's hammers be fixed?
And I wasn't aware they're broken right now.
Yeah. So, I believe it's on Jacob's list if there's a bug, but we'll see. So Saspia is saddened that you don't think of her as a monster.
UNT aren't monsters.
monsters.
They're just emotionless, soulless, often evil people. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. I have my Office Curse of Strahd character as a Yuan-Ti, which honestly, now that I've played one a bit, they feel like they're a bit of an OP character race.
Mm-hmm.
They get free spells, which is always awesome. They get advantage on dealing with magic stuff, which is kind of bullshit when you think about it. Like, that's actually really, 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 really good. And then, they get buffs to charisma, which is, the casting stat for bards, warlocks, sorcerers, paladins. So, Yuan-Ti are actually really amazing.
Yeah. And Death01 is asking, what are the weekend buffs GE? And to repeat, I will not be spoiling those on Thursdays anymore, as Sean will be announcing them tomorrow morning in his new show, Griddle Champions, with Lee Goldberg. We'll be revealing the weekend buffs through Pancake Art, so that's very exciting. And also tomorrow...
Yeah.
Also,
Sorry. Go.
Sorry, okay, Death missed that. Okay. I will not be spoiling the weekend buffs on Thursdays anymore, as Sean will be announcing them at his new show, Griddle Champions, from 10 to noon Pacific time here on CNE Twitch, where he and Lee Goldberg will be revealing the weekend buffs and talking all things D&D, Idle Champions, etc. And we have another awesome show, also officially debuting on Fridays on the CNE channel, but it's the streamer's been streaming for a while, and it's Garwar's War Room, so that will be from 1 to 3 p.m. Pacific time on Fridays as well. So we're very excited about that.
Yeah, congratulations, Garwar.
Yeah.
Gar-yar, somebody said.
Yeah.
Somebody mentioned that Yuan-Ti are also immune to poison, which is insane. It's insane. It's so good. Our party got hit by Cloud Kill, and I just stood in it and continued to fight and laugh while they had to frantically run as they were dying.
Oh, dear. Oh, okay. Well, there you go. Should I wrap it up? I feel like I should wrap it up for the week.
I mean, it's your show.
No, it's your show. I'm just usurping it.
Yeah, I mean, it's about 5:02 ish.
About 5:02.
So it's probably a good time to wrap it up.
Okay.
Yeah.
With your blessing, Dylan, I will wrap it up. Thank you and good night. That's our show for Thursday, April 2nd, 2020. Thank you for joining us today and participating in the Idle Champions and Dungeons & Dragons communities. You are all awesome. Special thanks to Luke Gygax for taking the time to chat with us. The show exists because of a number of amazing people behind the scenes, including our co-producer Erica, as well as our partners at Dungeons & Dragons, Greg, Bart, Pelham, Allison, Shelling, and Lisa. Take care, champions, and see you tomorrow for our regular... not see you tomorrow. See Sean tomorrow for Griddle Champions. Bye.
Tune in for pancakes, 10 p.m. tomorrow.
10 a.m.
10 a.m.
10 a.m. There.
10 p.m. if you're on the opposite side of the world.
Breakfast food. See you tomorrow.